The largest organ is our skin. That's another kind of consideration, because when you're thinking about what do I cover up with? Well, you want it to be something that's chemical free if you can get it, and not going to be cancer causing. You're trying to protect cancer. You don't want to cause cancer. Did you know that the fifth most commonly diagnosed cancer in the US was melanoma?
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Which is skin cancer, for those of you
Yes.
that do not understand what that is. That is great information. So all the more timely to speak to skincare, and we're going to speak specifically to SPF sunscreens. And why is it important? Our skin is the largest organ in our bodies.
Yes, it is summer, and it's a relevant topic. Over 5 million skin cancers are treated every year in our country, according to the Skin Cancer Foundation, and almost all of them are the direct result of too much UV exposure. So, and I'm going to act like a mom right now, just 5 sunburns can double your risk of melanoma, the deadliest kind of skin cancer.
Wow, that's
Mom or
amazing.
doctor.
But you know what? I mean, really, if we're not worried about cancer, there's just the truth about our skin can get older. I love Michelle Gellis, who's a facial acupuncturist. And she says there's only 2 kinds of people in the world: people that sag and people who will sag.
Oh.
So I'm like, and guess what? Gravity is real, and our skin is vulnerable. And so we see sunspots, and as I say, sagging skin, wrinkles, uneven skin tone, skin cancers, as we mentioned, and like precancerous cells too for skin. So
Right.
What are we going to do?
Well, these are all not necessarily, from these 5 burns a year. You can also get all of that from the gradual doses of UV. So protect your skin if you can starting from a younger age. And we'll talk about what that means to protect. But the younger you can start to protect, the better, because after 40, although you want to continue to protect, there's less of an impact compared to what happens, when you're younger, like 18, and then the gradual constant exposure. So we're looking at sunscreens today and other ways to kind of cover up. So, the largest the largest organ is our skin. That's another kind of consideration, because when you're thinking about what do I cover up with? Well, you want it to be something that's chemical free if you can get it, and not going to be cancer causing. You're trying to protect cancer. You don't want to cause cancer. So there's this whole recall which made buying skin products confusing, or SPF lotions confusing. Back in 2021, there was an FDA recall on SPF products, sunscreens, because there was benzenes in them, and I think it was just a byproduct of some of the other chemicals, so it wasn't intentionally added. But it made it very confusing because, the Environmental Working Group, don't know if you know them, but they do analyses of all different types of skin products. And they analyzed over 2,000 products, found that 75% didn't provide adequate protection, but that they were also, when they were analyzing sunscreens, but they were also finding other ingredients that could harm. So I love referencing the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep website, which we'll add in our show notes to help you evaluate your skin products. And before we even hopped on here, we were looking at our own SPF daily skin products that we're using to evaluate it, because, life gets busy, and we're trying to do the best that we can for ourselves too. And Mary and I were looking what are you using? And they were both a pretty good rating, but, we could get better. One of them had talc in it. So we're like, that's kind of increases risk for cancer. So get rid of that. So the best kind would be the mineral, for sensitive skin, would be the mineral sunscreens.
Right. And so just to kind of take it back, I mean, one of the functions of the skin is that it acts as a protective barrier. But, putting products on it, it can still seep through, because that's also another function, right? It's supposed to bring in the good and keep out the bad. But then sometimes when we use things continuously, because technically we should be using sunscreen on a regular basis.
Daily, even if you're in the car.
Yeah, right? And it's important to protect the skin, but simultaneously we care about what kind of product will go in and seep through the skin.
Yeah, we want to age gracefully, but we don't want to harm ourselves doing it.
That's right.
Mhm.
So then let's look at the solutions, right? So we talked about covering up. So what are we doing? Like, listen, I'm an Asian and I haven't done this personally, but certainly a lot of people do, like using sun umbrellas.
I do, and I'm not an Asian. I use
Really?
umbrellas. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Yeah,
when I
but
go to like outdoor concerts or whatever, even through COVID, when it was like, available, I'd bring an umbrella because I want the experience, but I don't want to be like, I'm very pale and so I'll burn. Like
right.
they used to call me Casper when I was a lifeguard. Casper, the friendly ghost, because I'm so
Really?
white. But then I get freckles and I don't really love the freckles. So I'm okay with
Yes.
them on my body, but don't really like them on my face.
Oh my
They look
gosh.
like aging spots. So I'm vain.
No, you know what? I'm vain too because I love the outdoors and I would get freckling. And when I was young, so this is exactly what you're pointing to, Tanya, when you say protect starting when you're young. Because when I was young, I would get these little freckles over the summer, but they would disappear in the winter. Now it's a permanent landmark on my face, and I wish I had done more. That said, maybe it's never too late for you guys. And certainly we want to protect it so that we don't get more. And there are certain things that we can lighten it and all that stuff, but that's a completely different episode, which we're going to be so happy to do for a future episode. So let's go back to what will be helpful to cover up. And before we do that, I just want to say you need to share this episode with everyone that you know and subscribe. And we talk about such relevant things. And when you subscribe and share, it will help us to keep going on our podcasts as well. So you're definitely reach out to us. You can DM us on our My Fertology on Instagram. You can reach out to us on myfertology.com. That's where the podcasts and the YouTube videos also gets stored, right? So definitely do that. So let's go on. We're going to talk about hats. There's lots of different kinds of hats. So sometimes caps aren't enough because it's forward facing. So the sun can hit through from the sides. So the wider rims all around are just better.
I agree, but it's not so fashionable to go for a run
Yes.
with
Okay.
a broad brim hat. So I wear the caps, but then when I'm on the beach or at a concert or whatever, I'll wear the wide brim or I'll have the umbrella so that I can not wear a hat. So yes, a very good point because I'll always get the freckles on the cheeks because of that. And just a backstory, when I was a lifeguard, it was cool to put on baby oil. There was no
Yes.
protection and tanning beds were in back then
Yes.
until they started to get some heat, pun intended, around the increased incidence of cancer using tanning beds. And my own mother developed basal cell carcinoma, and it's a very slow growing cancer, but you have to remove bones sometimes if you just wait too long and take big chunks out of your nose. The more common places to get it are like the sun exposed areas. So, it's like your nose or your back, like shoulders. If you're somebody who works in, let's say, outdoors construction, and you have your shirt off because you're hot or whatever, and you're out there all the time. So consider covering up either with shirts or with sunscreen and then reapplying it. Because if you're sweating, it's coming off. Or if you're jumping in the water, it's coming off, even if it says that it doesn't.
You're totally right about that. And so when we say covering up it with clothing, you can wear like linen or light colored long sleeve clothes as well. And they even have SPF bathing suits, like with long sleeves if you're out there in the sun all day. But you really want to avoid the peak sun hours, though. What are the peak hours typically when we go out?
Closer to noon, but it depends. I think it varies on the day and the time sun rises. So you got to check in with your Alexa or your Google. You can ask every day, what's the weather
that's true.
today? What are the peak hours?
Right.
And sometimes you can't tell because there's clouds in the sky. And I remember going on a vacation with a close friend and she lay out in the sun, fell asleep. It was cloudy and she got, sun heat exhaustion from it, like closest heat stroke, but heat exhaustion and burned to a crisp. So our holiday was very interesting. We were trying to take care of her. So have to be very cautious with even shaded peak
Yes,
hours.
you can still get I get tanned easily, but my skin is super sensitive. So even in the shade, I'll still get darker.
Oh, for sure. Yes, because, it penetrates through the trees or wherever you are. So definitely put it on every day. And then as a general habit, I only started doing this, sadly, at 40, putting on the SPF 50. But as you were saying before, actually, maybe you can explain SPF 50 versus 30. What's the difference in protection for UVB?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I myself will buy 50, but it's actually not necessary because SPF 30 and higher will do what it needs to do, which is when you buy SPF 30, it's going to basically block out 97%. It's a protection for against UVB, the ultraviolet rays. And the difference for SPF 50 is only 1% more. So it's 98% protection. And so that means that there's no such thing as 100% protection, and that's okay. And but I think there's a difference in price. So if you're like, no, if it doesn't matter to you as much, then stick with the SPF 30, and that's totally fine. I do use the SPF 50. Do you yourself for your skin?
I do, because that's what was available, and it was a mineral sunscreen. I have sensitive skin. I've used natural, like probably at least 20 natural sunscreen products, and have had reactions to them like rashes. And so I'm always, on the hunt for different new whatever. And I seem to have found a product that seems to work for me. We don't really mention brands on here, but the environmental working group is a good place to start. And what I use might not work for your skin type, even if it is for sensitive skin. Or for people with the rosacea, allergy-prone skin, it's always best to go with the mineral sunscreens, the least ingredients, going for the SPF 30, like you're saying, because if it's only a 1% protection difference, and then trying to get the screen through or figure out based on the environmental working group's skin deep rating system. Sometimes that's even a little bit confusing, because as an example, one ingredient was less to thin when we were looking it up this morning, and less to thin is harmless, but it was kind of rated higher. So do your best. And, you can always ask your naturopathic doctor or your acupuncturist if they're on top of this kind of stuff. So you can get more information and help us or help you. We can help you choose products.
So the one thing that we definitely want to address as well is like, yes, we don't want to be so freaked out that we avoid it altogether. And we do, because we do need vitamin D in our bodies. Did we talk about this earlier?
So funny, I don't remember because we did mention it before we came on here.
Exactly.
That it's important. Okay, so if you are applying sunscreen every day and you're going out in the summertime, it's really important. If you are low in vitamin D, you've been shown to have low levels on blood, anything less than 75, the goal range would be 75 to 250, aiming for around 100, 150. And you have been found that you're low and you're not wanting to take vitamin D through the summer and you want to get some exposure, make sure that your arms and your legs are exposed for at least 20 minutes in some non-peak hour sun. It's totally fine. You don't want to get burned. And then put your SPF on after, your sunscreen on after, so that you can get a dose of vitamin D.
And just to be clear, right? Just to be clear in what you said. So you can leave your arms and legs to be exposed, but cover your face.
Yes,
right?
Cover your face and your neck and your hands. Don't forget your hands, because with age, hands age.
The age spots
People
on
forget
the
hands.
Yes.
Yeah. And the neck too, like the chest and the neck. I find that that's the one area on me, again, going back to my vanity, that is definitely like it. You can see the aging more than the face.
Well, I can't wait to work on you, Tanya, because like we're doing more facial rejuvenation, and there's so much we can do, like between cupping and gua sha. Episodes on that, and that's what you can do as self-care at home on your own. But obviously, the facial acupuncture you cannot do on your own. But like super amazing. Like I've seen some incredible results. So that's another episode. But let's go back to, well, I think we covered it all, right?
I guess the bottom line is that melanoma is one of the most deadly forms of skin cancer, as we said, and it's on the rise. It has been globally for decades. And melanoma is the skin cancer. It's the 5th most common diagnosed cancer we mentioned in the beginning. So it's really important to protect your skin from cancers, but then we're also looking at aging gracefully. And these are strategies to help you, looking at, protecting your skin with sunscreens that don't bother you or increase your risk for cancer, don't give you allergies or skin irritation. And then strategies around where do you look? How do you find that information out? So hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share, like, subscribe to our podcast. The more you do that, the more people view it and get to hear the solid information too. Thank you so much.